Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday edition of Level Up. As you know, we come to you each day live right after the financial markets close right here. So that way we can share with you news that you can use. Yet today, a lot of things happening in the financial markets as we saw, unfortunately, the 4-day pullback. We've had 4 good days of the financial markets, but today was unfortunately a change of rhythm, if you will. The Dow closed down 157 points. The NASDAQ closed down 8 points. And unfortunately, there's been continued discussions on whether or not we'll be receiving another round of stimulus funding because of the pandemic. Many Americans continue to be struggling, looking at unfortunately eviction, looking at their jobs not coming back anytime soon, and yet the pandemic continues to creep up all across the United States here. So we're hoping for better news, but unfortunately, that's the reality today. On other fronts pertaining to the coronavirus, we continue to see weakness. In fact, Johnson & Johnson and Eli Lilly had actually to make announcements today on the financial markets about disappointments in Johnson & Johnson on the coronavirus vaccine and for Eli Lilly on the antibody treatment that they're working on. So unfortunately, not good news, but the positive is that they're sharing this with us. So it's been, we got to commend them for their transparency, because certainly they're caring enough to make sure that we know what's going on so that by the time there is a treatment and a vaccine, we'll feel confident to be able to be comfortable enough to give it to our loved ones and ourselves. So on other fronts, as you may see, travel continues to struggle. So Delta Airlines announced that travel this last quarter was down 75% in terms of revenue compared to the same time last year. So Delta definitely got hit quite a bit today. So across the board, unfortunately, not some great news, but also we saw some good news coming out of Apple. As you know, we talked about yesterday, the new Apple iPhone 12, which now has 5G service, but also a very hefty price tag to that. So if you are looking at your budget, wondering whether or not you should spend on that new iPhone, you're probably answered it for yourself. Probably a good time to wait. The other thing that we're seeing is today and tomorrow being Amazon Prime Day, so many shoppers are out there online looking to buy things for themselves and perhaps for loved ones into the holidays. Again, if you can, remember, hold on to your wallet and try to keep from engaging in impulse shopping. But today, I'm really excited because, as you know, Tuesdays are especially special because I have a special guest invited to join us today, the one and only Dr. Pepper Schwartz. Now, you may recognize Dr. Schwartz. I'm going to actually call you Pepper because I feel like we're friends. So, yes. Pepper, you are someone that has come across my radar multiple times. I feel very grateful to have been introduced to you from Cooper, who's your son. Yes. And you are certainly a powerhouse professor, a TV personality, multiple books under your belt as well. There's not a lot that you don't do, Pepper. And most importantly, we're actually inviting you in today because we really need your help. I think a lot of people have this discussion about love and money, which is our topic today. And I know this is a topic you know well. Can you give us a little bit of background of how you came to study what you did, what you share, what you teach, what you share with the public today?
Well, some years ago, I realized that when you look at the research, when you look at the things that people argue about most, way at the top is money. And on the other hand, when I took a look at how much people knew about each other's economic spending habits, values, goals, not much, because money looked like the much more private thing than sex did, which is another thing I studied. And I thought, well, if money's more taboo than that, I better know more about it. So I did a study of about 12,000 people, married people, cohabiting heterosexuals, same-sex couples, male, same-sex couples, female, to see how they handled money in their relationship, because I felt it was so important and there was so little research on it. And it's remained an important interest of mine because I still feel that it is not something that couples share enough about or know how to talk about it.
I'm so glad you brought up this because we continue to see that even as a longtime financial professional. And I actually know you also collaborate with money.com on several studies, and you're doing a lot of initiatives there that we'll definitely share about as well. But this is something, as a longtime financial advisor, so often couples come in, like you mentioned. Couples can come in all different shapes and forms, but oftentimes what you'll see is one person tends to be more of a saver, one person tends to be more a spender, and that can cause, if you will, some chaos within the relationship, right? Pepper, can they coexist? And what is your experience in this area?
Well, my experience is somewhat that it's kind of a dismal situation. Particularly, I feel sorry for the financial planners who didn't, go and get a PhD or a clinical degree in psychology. They want to give people the best possible economic future, and right from the beginning, they find that these two people are not prepared to discuss, the actual things they put out there, but rather they have to kind of get sudden counseling skills to have them able to work proactively and in some kind of collaboration. So I think the first thing I've thought about is that, and some financial planners do this. They give a sheet with them, what are your goals? What are your, how do you act in this or that situation? And I think the first thing people have to do is see what kind of anger has been built up to that point. If people are not past the angry stage or the frustrated stage, it's very hard for them to plan together. But if we can find underlying it, what's the money culture they've grown up in? Many people are just replicating their parents or replicating what they think they should be doing. And, everybody says, oh, marriage is compromise. But sometimes you find in money that they haven't even begun to compromise. So that's one of the other things. Like, we're a team here. We have to work together.
I love that you say that, because you are so right. And I appreciate your empathy towards our industry, because it is so true. I do think, as financial advisors, it goes so much beyond the balance sheets and the statements. So much of it comes from your feelings. Like you had mentioned, Dr. Schwartz, actually, I should call her Dr. Schwartz, but I'm going to call her Pepper. You had mentioned, we all have our financial history. So some of us may have grown up with limited resources, and some of us had more resources, and coming together, and we even talk a different money talk, if you will, right? And I think you've probably experienced that with your own clients that you've worked with as well, is like, how do you get on the same page? For example, we know, like right now we're talking about Amazon Prime Day. These next couple of days, Americans are going to be spending millions of dollars probably on things that they may or they may not need. I also, talk to certain clients, and they'll say like, well, he puts everything on the credit card, and that's why we have so much credit card debt. And the other one says, well, I feel like we shouldn't spend any money, but all, she wants to do is spend money. How do you get them to be on the same page? Can they coexist in a harmonious relationship?
Yes, but they have to make some decisions before things begin, as opposed to looking at them after they've happened. So, for example, I think Prime Day is a perfect example. Okay, there's some bargains out here. Why don't we come to this with intentionality? What are the bargains that we actually need? I know you've been talking about, one of those cleaning things that ramble around the room, right? I try not to use branding here. Okay, and does that would let's talk about it. Do we need one of those? And if we do, let's do some research. Go to Consumer Reports, something like that, and find out what's really a good deal. What else would we like? What have we been longing for? Where are our goals? What would we do? And what is a kind of just a fun thing? And say, okay, we're going to do these 2 or 3 things that you and I are now talking through, and each one of us gets a wild card, something we just really want. Doesn't matter if the person agrees about it. That way you could like have a joint front, cover the big things, give each other a little bit of privilege so you don't feel too controlling or too controlled, and go out there and do something as a couple. You'll be stronger and financially better off.
I love this because you mentioned, I'm writing notes right now. So look at something in your relationship, tackle the big things, and then still give privilege to both sides. I think that's such a great example. And in fact, Get It Hair, who's joining us on Periscope, she just said her vacuum just broke this weekend. Let me tell you, we are like living in a similar universe here because my vacuum just broke this weekend. And Pepper's talking about that Roomba. My husband says, maybe we need a Dyson. I'm like, let's see if we can fix this vacuum first. But certainly, I love this. So sometimes, we have to, I think, when it comes to your money, we have to put focus on the things that matter most, right? And let some things sort of fall to the wayside if we're going to get from point A to point B. So Pepper, you had mentioned the importance of, privilege. You talked about tackling the big things. So for example, in a typical household, let's just say, some of the big things would be such as retirement planning, right? Maybe sending the kids to college. That may be a big thing. But like, for example, what about the vacuum cleaner too? Should we use that as an example to build up to the bigger topics, or should we start at the bigger topics and move down to the smaller topics? Like, is there an ideal way to handle the money discussion?
I think what you're talking about should be seen not in terms of order, but time. Some discussions need a lot of time and they need a lot of information. Other things like a vacuum cleaner can be, okay, you think we should fix it. I think we should get a new one. Let's go see what it takes to fix it. Okay, looks if you get it fixed, it's going to be $200 to fix it. And there's a pretty neat model on sale now for $359, and it has 2 years warranty. We can talk about that and come to the same conclusion because we can get pretty quick data. Now, retirement's not a quick data deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you really need, and you may well need a professional to see what it takes to retire. Because let's say you have one person who's scared silly about retirement and is afraid of being very poor during that, and another person who feels confident that they can earn enough money to a certain rate, so they're just going to be fine. But the scared person is just not buying it, as it were. So that's the time you go like, hey, let's go to a professional, or let's use one of these online questionnaires that kind of help you a bit, and let's see who's right. Let's not assume you're wrong or I'm right and you're not right. Let's get some information here. What I think happens is we lose ourselves to fear or anger, or even more likely, what happened is after our first feeling, the other person's shown no respect for us. And now we're fighting not just for whatever it was we said or thought, but for respect, for dignity, for not being pushed aside. It's so important to make sure in these discussions that you're not attacking the person. You're dealing with agreeing or disagreeing with the idea.
Oh, I love that. It's powerful. So you're tackling the idea and the thing that you want to purchase, doing the research, but it's not an attack on the person. It's coming to a solution or a discussion pertaining to this purchase. I love that. I do think, that's something that sometimes we feel like if you're saying I can't spend, that means I'm making a bad decision, and therefore you're attacking me in my decision-making ability. The thing that's really powerful. So if you are in a relationship, this might actually give you some great insight on how others are feeling and how you can best present sort of your case and come. I love that sort of coming together, having discussions, doing research, and making decisions that's best for you. So one of my clients, Pepper, always says, well, I'm from the country and he's from the country club. I hear that. And she says, I grew up where we really had nothing, right? I lived in a foreign country. Literally, we didn't even have carpeting and things were just really simple. We would have to walk to pump our water and stuff. This wasn't that long ago. She's not that much older, but her husband is quite country club. So as soon as he earned a little bit of money, they upgraded to the Mercedes. And then at every step, it seems like it's always, as soon as there's a little bit of wealth built, as soon as that happened, he would want to spend. What do you say about a couple like that when there's such a contrast in terms of financial background, family background, as well as now financial decision making? There's such polar opposites.
First of all, I'd say show empathy for each other. Each of you is acting out of deep emotional histories, and you need to understand that and and honor it by saying, "Look, and I understand your life was really tough, and that's going to affect how we proceed." And you could, and she could say, "Look, at I understand that you are proud and happy to be making some money, and you want to show some of that to show the world and yourself how much you've accomplished." So you both understand the emotional background you come from. Now, if you believe that, and then you love each other, you say we love each other. How do we understand and honor the person who feels that they're going too fast, that this is, that bad times could come again very easily? And how do we also honor the person who's saying, I need to enjoy some of this. It's something I've wanted my whole life. And again, it says, okay, well, let's take a look at our real budget. Let's say we put X amount on the side for retirement, for a rainy day, for making me feel comfortable. What would it take for the person who's cautious to feel comfortable? And then we go to the person who needs to spend some to feel good about what they've got and go, okay, how can we both agree to what would be a major purchase for this year that we could afford given what we put aside and given our operating expenses? And yes, we could afford that, but that's the only thing we could afford. Can we agree that we'll wait till our next meeting on this kind of thing, where the year has moved on a little bit to see what else we need to save or spend. If you can agree that each person's feelings are valid, then you can figure out how to go from there. It's when you say your feelings aren't valid, you're too scared, or you're a spendthrift, you're bad for spending too much money, you're bad for being stuck in the past. That's when we can't move at all.
Yeah, I love that. That's just really important to have the empathy. Sometimes I find out, having counseled clients for so many years, sometimes when they're with me, they come to the discussion. Yes, we're going to be empathetic. We're going to share. We're going to have these discussions, but they fall off. And it's sort of, they revert back to their old patterns. And then we have another quarterly review or another annual review. And it seems like there's that pattern where it happens again. So I almost think that some couples might benefit from not only speaking to a financial advisor, but having a professional like yourself kind of counsel them about this, because I do think it could play havoc on their budget for sure. But so that struggle continues on. We also know many couples actually split because of financial reasons, right? So Pepper, you must see this quite a bit. I'm guessing you see this reverting of going back to this pattern. What do you tell people when this happens?
Well, look, I couldn't agree with you more. Most financial planners like yourself are whizzes at a lot of things in terms of figuring out what would be a good plan for couples and what's right for them. And, you have to be at least part psychologist. But, excuse me. But, on the other hand, it's not your job to root out the deep-seated issues that are causing these couples to not be able to collaborate even in front of you when they're paying for your time and they know they need it or they wouldn't be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. So in some sense, you're saying, look, you're not being economically wise to not use this time, to advance your economic security and growth. Let's go, it'd be great if you guys figure out what's really going on between you, find a way that you can work together. And that might take more than one session with a psychologist or social worker, or clinical social worker, or counselor. I mean, there's all kinds of people who do therapy or advice, and get that worked out so that you can come in as a team and use your time efficiently.
I love that. Okay. So this is a question that many people come to me with, and that is, what are your thoughts on how to invest money? I always feel like for most of my couples, I say I'm totally okay with he or she, we, and me money. So there's like that person's money, our money, and, my money, and keeping 3 different pools. What are your thoughts on this?
I love that. I think that's very wise. I think that if you don't have some individual money that you can control in any way you like, as long as you sort of agree that it will not bring the other person's future into danger. In other words, we sort of understand what our limits are in our individual money, because, you can't sign like a contract with your individual money that, the couple would in fact be legally liable for. I think that I think that's really great because I think part of what people argue about is too much control, too much judgment. And if you have some freedom in individual money, it makes it much less likely you're going to have those kind of clashes. I think the main thing you share are the things that are for everyday costs, every month costs, the kind of thing that makes you viable as a financial organization, and also the kinds of long-term goals you may have, like retirement, or the big things like life insurance, et cetera, saving kids for kids' school, et cetera. Those all need to be joint. But you can have pods of money that are for whatever you want. Nobody gets to judge it. And you don't get into this icky arguments about really nothing except control.
Right. Oh, I love that. See, it's really a matter of control. So I love that. And I think so many times we need to recognize and sort of appreciate that too, because each of us needs to feel like we matter and that we can control something and not have to ask if we want to spend. I think that sort of that needing of permission can create a lot of stress within relationships for sure. I love this discussion. Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, I
Right.
love this discussion. I mean, selfishly, I wish we were in the same room because I just feel like we could talk about this for hours. One thing that I would love to get your perspective on is this. This is a very common thing where, I'm a big believer that when you plan your finances, couples should come together. Right now, we're doing, I have clients all across the globe, so a lot of them are Zoom meetings, and I often say like, do you want to include your partner in this? And then make sure that I have their names and whatnot. Because we know in a traditional household, oftentimes the husband has taken that role of making the big financial decisions. But we also know that women make those buying decisions, right? And so investment decisions, buying decisions. But now with women and men being primary breadwinners and now also juggling house, family and kids and everything else. Do you think it's going to change? Do you think there's going to be more equality within a family in terms of those financial decisions? Or do you think we still have a lot of work to do?
I think there's going to be equality unless somebody looks like they're just so much more qualified than the other person. That they both say, well, you handle it because you're an accountant or you're, an economist or you're a lawyer, whatever it is that you might say, you just delegate it. But I feel people really have to be more egalitarian. Even if one person is extremely talented, each person needs to know what the financial health of the relationship is, what decisions are being made. I think in two terms, one of which is if there's a divorce, and hey, there's a big divorce rate going on. You do not want to be clueless. And second of all, let's say you have the best marriage in the world and you're never going to get divorced. Well, one partner could die. I mean, maybe you go for a very long time, but you need to know what is going on with your spouse. You need to be a team on economics, even if it's kind of a discussion that one person's going to deal at a much lower level than the other. I think this is as important as any other major decision. Maybe it's the most important decisions you make because it can make your life so much better or so much worse.
I love that. So this is the most important decision. Those of you who are in a relationship, I think you can relate to this because we definitely want more happiness and less divorce.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing. All right, I love this discussion, Pepper. I'm going to tell you right now, the show's not even done yet. I'm going to tell you I want you back because this is so powerful, and I think we need to have more conversations like this because otherwise, so many times we're talking about investing and we're talking about how to manage our debt or make those important financial plans, but we need to get to the root and the heart of the discussion, which Pepper, you know so well. So I think this is giving us a lot to think about. So let's have some fun. I feel like it's time for a speed round. What do you think?
Okay.
This is something I know you know very, very well, but I would love to hear one tip that we can start today to improve our love and money talk. What's your tip?
Well, what we've been talking about, make a date to go over your financial health. Let's take a review and set a time, not just say, gee, we ought to do that, and say, let's go through our major issues here. What are we, how are we on insurance? How are we thinking about retirement? What debts? What major purchases would we like? Let's do a little dreaming. Let's
I
think
love
together about what would be fun to work towards. Make it have both, a little bit of work and a little bit of fun.
I love that. A little bit of fun, a little bit of work, maybe even a glass of wine for some of you. All right. If money was no issue, what's the one thing you would buy, Pepper?
Oh gosh, I'd either get an apartment in Paris or a house in Napa or Sonoma. I love wine and I love French, and gosh, that would really be fun.
I love that. I love that. All right. Best investment you ever made?
Best investment I ever made was of my time being consultant to a company, a startup that's doing extremely well. If I put that out of my mind, when I was in graduate school, I had a friend who was a financial counselor, and I put a little bit of money into his investment group, and that ended up paying for my kids' college 20 years later. So that was a really good decision.
Congratulations. And I will tell you, I'm going to add to that, Pepper. One of the best things I did was, I think it was last year, spending some time with your son, Cooper. One of the highlights of that conference for sure, one of the nicest people that I've gotten a chance to meet in a very long time. And we know he's doing some amazing things at money.com, which we had mentioned earlier that you are collaborating with. You want to share a little bit about that, what you're doing together?
Well, thank you. Of course, I couldn't be prouder and more in love with my son. It's so nice to hear you say that. He's a very talented guy, but with a big heart, huge empathy, and a gift for friendship. So I know he thinks a lot of you as well. But what money.com is doing, we're going to be doing a questionnaire to help people understand, how and why they feel the way they do about money, and give them some directions, because knowing a little bit more about their temperament, their fears, their desires. And we'll probably be doing some help for couples with on money as well. Money.com is part of consumeradvocates.com, which is the larger company where Coop's, I think, in charge of business development. And the idea being that the more rational you can be, the more you know about yourself and the persons who are dear to you, the better you can look to your future with knowledge and security.
I love that. And maybe you could tell us about your show too, because I think that's
Yes, I am one of the on-air experts for Married at First Sight, and we literally have people apply to get married to someone, people who desperately would love a life partner. They meet at the altar. We support them for 8 weeks, and then they decide if they want to stay married or get a divorce. We have lots who have stayed married, and I think we have 5 kids now from couples, and we're now in our 11th season in New Orleans and working on the 12th in Atlanta.
Awesome. And that's on Lifetime. So you can see we're sharing the page that you can see right there and on Facebook. So Pepper, thank you so much for making the time. I know how incredibly busy and in demand you are. So I've been looking forward to this for so long, but thank you for making the time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And I'm hoping you'll come back because there's a lot to learn from you for sure. Thank you, Pepper.
Thank you. I'd love to. That's a nice invitation, and I say yes.
And so how can people follow you? Where are you most engaged, where they can follow you? Is it on the website, on social? Where do you prefer?
Probably the website, Dr. Pepper Schwartz and .com, or I am on Instagram, but if you go to my website and you email me, I'm very likely to email you back.
I love it. Well, thank you.
I forgot. I'm also on Cameo if you want me to wish you happy birthday.
Oh, how fun. Okay, she's on Cameo. For those of you who don't know Cameo is so fun. You can actually reach out to Pepper, and if let's say you're a fan or your friends are a fan, or you just want her to say happy birthday, or it could be even like, happy holidays or whatever it may be, you can actually engage her that way too. So I think that's cameo.com, right, Pepper?
Right, and it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. I love that. Well, thank you so much for your friendship, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I learned so much from you, and I think many couples can relate to the information that you shared. And who knows, maybe they'll engage on a fun conversation this weekend, and maybe it'll be over wine, maybe it'll be over cheesecake, whatever it may be. We wish you well, and we thank you for your time. And as always, I'll see you again tomorrow at 1:30 Pacific or 4:30 Eastern. And as you know, we stream live here on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitch. And of course, did I mention LinkedIn? I always want to make sure I mention LinkedIn at least twice. But see you very soon.